Brendan Pihan is the CEO of Essendon Fields here in Melbourne, which is probably one of Australia's most successful and diverse mixed-use developments. Everything from an airport to hotel to restaurants to a Coles supermarket and a Lamana supermarket, a full DFO shopping center. Most car dealerships have a presence in Essendon Fields as well, and also a very big office park. So I'm really excited to talk to Brendan about what it's like to build, plan, and keep evolving such a mixed-use development, particularly in a market like we were having right now in 2020. So Brendan, thank you very, very much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for the opportunity, Zelman. I appreciate it.
And also have you know, Brendan, this is the very first, I've been working from my study here for about 6 or 7 or 8 months, and I just set up my stand-up desk. So you might notice I'm standing up for the first time for this interview, which is a bit different, and I hope you don't find my shuckling distracting.
I thought you looked tall, Zelman. It looks good.
Okay, so Brendan, what is the single biggest learning you've had from 2020 that you could be taking into next year in 21?
Zelman, I reckon not so much learnings as reinforcement of the importance of basic principles. Cash is king. Transparency and regular communication with stakeholders it is really important to keeping them comfortable, especially when you're trying to solve big problems. Getting as close to your customer as possible, and diversity really matters. I think that's been the strength of our business throughout the crisis, is that it is really quite diverse, and we'll be working hard to keep the portfolio balanced over the course of 2021.
Well, diversity is one thing that Essendon Fields most certainly is good at doing. Essendon Fields is one of Australia's biggest and most successful mixed-use projects with a 20-year plan. Have you found yourself rewriting that plan during this year at 20?
That's a really good question. And, you know, we have to submit a master plan to the Commonwealth once every 8 years. And this year we've just had our draft master plan for 2019 deferred. So we actually have the opportunity to really think about that in more detail. We do have a really, really diverse business. So between aviation and property and all of the different asset classes that we deal with in property, as well as other businesses that we have some exposure to in terms of operating exposure, like the hotel, a little bit of fuel, outdoor signage, billboard signage, and things like that. So again, it really gets back down to that conversation, or that point that I made earlier about diversity. We want to maintain that diversity as much as possible. In the current plan, from a retail perspective, you know, we flag our intention to build out the south of the site, which enjoys some of the best exposure of any retail land, I would have thought, in Melbourne.
Moving on to office, in your own opinion, Brendan, what is the future purpose and needs of office going forward after the year we've had working from home?
Things are definitely shifting in that space. I think some people say that they like the commute. I think most people would probably be attracted to avoiding it if they could. I don't think the cost and the time of commute would be enough reason for workers and businesses to ditch the office. I think people like offices. They want to be in that team environment with their colleagues. Different things are achievable when people are together. Communication is way more effective when it's in person. And I'm not convinced that organisations believe that their productivity is improved with remote working, even if, you know, some of their people would have them believe that that's the case. I'm sure that there'll be more flexible work arrangements going forward, and that's sensible to attract and retain people and to optimise work-life balance. So I think those things are really important. I expect that workplace formats are going to change as well, with lower densities likely. But I haven't really resolved, Zelman, how all of those things are going to net out. And we're just going to need to wait and see how that works. I don't think that we're about to run out and spec an office building anytime either soon. Soon either. So, we're seeing strong demand from organisations that are in industries, exposed to industries that are growing. Technology, agribusiness, government services, and at the risk of talking up our own book, I think that this is the time when suburban offices really come into their own. They're close to where people live. The reduced commute times go with that. Easy access, affordable parking, low-rise buildings where you can walk up and avoid the lifts if you prefer.
Moving the conversation to air travel, when do you expect air travel to get back to the volumes that we were in 2019? And in the meantime, how are you planning to keep the airport running without many planes coming through?
Oh, well, Essendon's been remarkably resilient, Zelman. It's been the number 1 or 2 ranked airport for air travel right the way through the crisis, and that's because of the mix of traffic that we have. It's very different to up the road at Tullamarine. So emergency services have been really steady, and in fact the police transitioned into a new fleet of helicopters, and were running both of their fleets for a period of time. They've introduced a new fixed wing aircraft. Medivac was pretty steady. Some small freight activity was running, and that grew off the back of Qantas and Virgin being on the ground, and they usually carry a bit of freight. RPT movements to the Bass Islands and other regional destinations were maintained as an essential service, although they were really lightly patronised. They were supported by government. The flight schools were okay during stage 3, but then they, were really hit pretty hard in stage 4. So we're looking for them to bounce back. And the maintenance businesses have been pretty solid throughout as well. A lot of owners putting their planes in for services while they had the chance. And I think the last point on that would be from a regional perspective, and getting people back on those planes, supporting the 2 regional airlines that operate out of Essendon, Sharp and Link. That's all about border openings. We're hopeful that we'll see that this side of Christmas, particularly hopeful for that to happen in New South Wales, given that that Wollongong route, which was new, was really looking to be on the right trajectory.
Brendan, what would you say is the biggest opportunity now?
Oh, there's so many opportunities. Necessity is the mother of invention, and in a lot of cases the crisis has given people a reason to do something about those things that they should have been doing something about earlier. And there's no excuses now, so the innovators are really they've really got a green light, and they're going to be the winners. And of course, that extends to workplaces and overhead structures. And what a great chance for businesses to question why they're paying all that rent in the CBD, and see if they can come out to a suburban office market where their customer base might prefer to see them, and where their employees might prefer to work a little bit closer to home, and they can save a fortune along the way.
Yeah, it's interesting how everything now is on the table. Anything could be acceptable. Profitability is the number 1 priority. There's a lot of opportunities in a market where there's a bit of chaos, particularly I see what I do with retail. All the changes is creating enormous opportunities for both landlords and tenants.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
Good. Brendan, thank you very much for coming on to Lead the Way, sharing your insights, your learnings, and your lessons you had from this year and your plans for next. It's fascinating to hear how a project like Essendon Fields is managed from the top, and the future planning of where it goes to from here. Because as far as master planning goes and precincts, no one's done it better than you guys have done it by creating specialty precincts to work under one big master plan, and so successfully. So congratulations on the success you've had to date, and we look forward to seeing much more out of this in the future.
Zelman, thanks very much for your time, and thanks for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.